Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, check the news and see the headline, "The US dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency." Sounds like a movie plot, right? But here's the truth. More and more countries are actively working toward that very outcome. Leading the charge, a bloc you've heard of but maybe underestimated. BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And now new heavyweights like Egypt, the UAE, and Iran. So, can this alliance really dethrone the dollar and challenge America's global power, or is it just wishful thinking? Let's break it down, because the world order might be shifting right under our feet. For decades, the US dollar hasn't just been a currency, it's been the currency. About 58% of the world's foreign exchange reserves are held in dollars. Most global trade, from oil to electronics, is priced in dollars. Even countries that aren't allies of Washington rely on it to do business. Why does that matter? Because it gives the US enormous power, cheaper borrowing costs, influence over global finance, and of course, the ability to use sanctions as a political weapon. In short, the dollar isn't just money, it's a pillar of American dominance. But that pillar, it's starting to shake. Enter BRICS. What started as a loose economic partnership is now positioning itself as a counterweight to Western institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. The bloc is expanding aggressively, recently adding countries from the Middle East and Africa, including major oil producers. Together, BRICS nations represent over 40% of the global population, and by some measures, have overtaken the G7 in purchasing power. That's not just symbolic. That's raw economic muscle. And they're putting that weight to use. They're building BRICS Pay, a payment system designed to bypass SWIFT, the Western-controlled network that clears international transactions. They're encouraging trade in local currencies, yuan, rupees, rubles, anything but dollars. There's even talk of a shared BRICS currency. Now, that's still an idea, not a reality. But even the conversation signals something big. The era of uncontested dollar dominance is being questioned. Of course, BRICS isn't a fairy tale of unity. These countries don't always see eye to eye. China wants to lead, no surprise there. But India is wary of becoming dependent on its regional rival. Brazil and South Africa have very different economic priorities. And Russia, under heavy Western sanctions, is desperate to build an alternative system, even if it means pushing others faster than they'd like. So, creating a single currency, that's like asking 5 chefs to agree on one recipe while 2 of them hate each other. Not impossible, but very, very complicated. And then there's Washington. Donald Trump's administration has launched sweeping new tariffs as part of his reciprocal tariff strategy, aimed at reshaping global trade in favor of America. Brazil now faces a 50% tariff on many US-bound exports, a move linked to Trump's criticism of the prosecution of ex-President Bolsonaro. India is also being targeted. It faces an extra 25% penalty, raising the total tariff to 50% as punishment for its continued purchases of Russian oil. Now, that's a serious economic blow. Tariffs on that scale can cripple exports, disrupt supply chains, and slow GDP growth in BRICS economies. But here's the paradox. Such aggressive US pressure might instead push these countries closer together, accelerating the very de-dollarization agenda that Trump is trying to contain. It's global economic chess, and every move has major ripple effects. But let's zoom out. This isn't just a BRICS story. Around the world, countries are looking for ways to reduce reliance on the dollar. Why? Because the US has used its financial power as a geopolitical tool, freezing assets, cutting countries out of SWIFT, weaponizing trade. That's great for Washington, but if you're on the receiving end, not so much. Russia and Iran, for example, have been forced to ditch the dollar after being hit with sanctions. African nations are talking about replacing colonial-era currencies. Even Europe is diversifying. Germany and Italy have been quietly repatriating gold reserves. These moves might seem small, but together, they point to a bigger story. Trust in the dollar is eroding. Still, let's be clear. The dollar isn't going to collapse overnight. To rival it, BRICS or any alternative would need 3 things. 1. Deep, stable financial markets where countries can invest and borrow. 2. A unified payment system that's secure and efficient. And 3. Global trust that the system won't fall apart the next time there's a political disagreement. Right now, BRICS doesn't tick those boxes. In fact, Brazil's central bank openly says a BRICS currency won't compete with the dollar anytime soon. So no, we're not watching an immediate overthrow. But are we watching the beginning of the end? That's a different question. And make no mistake, the momentum is real. BRICS trade in local currencies has jumped by double digits this year. BRICS pay is moving from concept to reality every time a country signs a new energy deal in yuan or rupees instead of dollars. That's another crack in the foundation of US financial dominance. It's not an earthquake yet, but the ground, it's shifting. So what could speed this up? A global financial shock, another 2008-style crisis, or political paralysis in Washington could shake confidence in the dollar overnight. In that scenario, BRICS alternatives would suddenly look a lot more appealing, and history shows, when change comes, it often comes fast. At the end of the day, this isn't just about currency. It's about power. BRICS wants more than an economic role. They want a seat at the table shaping global governance, tech standards, energy security, even AI regulation. This is a challenge to the entire Western-led system. A move toward a multipolar world where Washington no longer calls all the shots. So can BRICS dethrone the dollar and rewrite the world order? Not today, not tomorrow. But the game has started. The question isn't if the dollar will lose its crown, it's when and to whom. If you want to follow this story, and trust me, it's just getting started, hit subscribe, because the next chapter in this global power shift might be the most dramatic yet.